Welcome all the judge and the candidates to come to this forum. Welcome everybody to join us in the cafeteria for this forum. My name is Ying. I send all the invitation to you guys, and I'm the chair of Westlake Chinese Group, Westlake Chinese Cultural Association, and I'm also president of APAPA, Ohio. So this forum is one of the 6 forum series in statewide in Ohio. We have 2 in Cincinnati, 2 in Columbus. And in Cincinnati and Columbus, we invited the governor candidates and the Congress. We have a special judicial forum here in Cleveland, in Westlake. So welcome for you to come here to talk to the voters and to talk to our community. And this event is also supported by AC Network and Asia Incorporation. So it's supported, we're supported in our Asian community. So the next speaker, I want to invite Sue to talk a little bit about how to get information to help the voters to vote for the judicial candidates. And Sue is a lawyer who practices law in downtown Cleveland since 1980. And she is also a volunteer member of the Judge for Yourself committee. And she serves in our WCCA Board of Directors. Welcome, Sue.
Thank you. Welcome to part 2 of the Candidates Forum. I think last week we had a lively discussion. We're looking forward to one again today. There is literature on the table about the candidates. There is also some literature there from the Judge for Yourself committee. That is a group of representatives of several different bar associations. The Judge for Yourself committee sits in groups like this for either 1 or 2 days before the primary elections and the general election, and asks questions of candidates and comes up with ratings. So that is one source of information when you choose to elect judicial candidates in this election. Obviously, it's not as good as what we have here today, where we can actually meet candidates, but it is an option. Our judicial candidates, and we're meeting candidates here today who are running for the Court of Common Pleas, which is the trial court that decides civil and criminal cases in Cuyahoga County, and for the juvenile court. The juvenile court hears both civil and criminal type proceedings. They don't really call them criminal proceedings, and other types of child matters such as child support and custody. Each of the candidates, if elected, will serve a 6-year term. So this is an important decision. It is a decision that can be made difficult because it's a nonpartisan election. So you won't find a Democrat or a Republican notation by the candidates on the ballot. It's also a challenging vote because in an election like this, where there's candidates for governor and treasurer and other high-ranking state offices, the judicial candidates are down toward the bottom of the ballot. And everyone here, I think, will ask you, please take time when you cast your ballot, either by mail or at the Board of Elections or at your polling place on election day, and go all the way down to the end of the ballot. That's an important part of being a citizen here. So with that, I'd like to introduce our moderator, Debbie Thomas. Debbie is a math professor at Cuyahoga Community College. She also serves on the board here at WCCA, and most importantly, she's one of my classmates in advanced Tai Chi. So come on, Debbie.
Thank you, Sue. Okay, so what we're going to do today, the format is we're going to ask each of the judges to answer 4 questions. So we're going to ask 4 questions. We're going to start out, we'll have the judges and the judicial candidates introduce themselves, and then my daughter Samantha Thomas and Catherine Chow are going to also ask questions. They are both students at Westlake High School and students here at the Chinese School. Okay, so we're going to have, the first thing we're going to do is have the candidates introduce themselves and tell why they are running for the position. And we'll ask that they each limit themselves for about 4 minutes in the introductions. Okay, and we'll start with Ms. Billingsley.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Cherie Billingsley, and I'm running for Judge in Cuyahoga County Court of Common Pleas. The reason I'm running for Judge in Court of Common Pleas is because I'd like to see change done. I'm running because I believe I'll be a fair, impartial, and community-minded judge. Right now, I believe that there is an opportunity to increase the connection that we have with the community. The judiciary right now doesn't frequently come out, doesn't frequently volunteer, doesn't frequently maintain a presence with you. What I'm here to let you know is that I do care about the community. I have a love for Cuyahoga County. I have a love for Cleveland. I have a passion to do what's right. I'm currently serving as an assistant Cuyahoga County prosecutor. In that capacity, I have the opportunity to do juvenile criminal cases, adult criminal cases, and now I do child support enforcement. These areas of the law impact us all. These areas of the law have shown me the importance of us having individuals on the bench who will be fair and impartial and will treat everyone with the respect and dignity that they deserve. I am endorsed by the Cameo organization, and I humbly ask for your vote on November 6, 2018. Vote Lynn Billingsley, and thank you for having me.
Good morning. Thank you for the invitation. My name is Jarrett Northup. I'm a trial attorney, and I work just down the street, although I live in University Heights. My offices are down there on Center Ridge. My practice is all trial work across the state of Ohio, both in Cuyahoga County and about anywhere, almost all the way down to Cincinnati, including courts of appeals and the Ohio Supreme Court. I've seen a lot of very good practices, both in state and federal court, and I've seen some practices that need improvement. I'm running to improve the Cuyahoga County judiciary, both in service, both in the focus on community safety and sentencing of violent felons, and also in improving the public's trust and respect for the judiciary. I've got the experience through, excuse me, my experience as a trial court attorney with these various judges throughout the state has given me the perspective to understand what it takes to run an efficient and effective docket, to make sure that when citizens have cases before the court, whether it's as a defendant and their constitutional rights are protected, or whether it's as a civil matter and you've got a business or an individual issue, that the judge is involved at the early stages of the cases, that he or she, in my case he, talks to you, understands what the problems are, reads the pleadings, and makes sure that the case moves along as quickly as possible or as slowly as necessary if it's a complex matter. So I'd like to bring my focus on service, safety, and integrity to the court this November. My name is Jarrett Northup.
Hello, my name is Lori Ann Dyke. That's Lori Ann Dyke, D-Y-K-E, that's my last name. I'm actually the granddaughter of immigrants. My family came to America, as all of your families have, to work hard in order to achieve and to help me be here, standing here today, talking with all of you. I have a lot of experience working in the legal system. I've been an attorney for over 20 years. I have both criminal and civil law experience. The court that I'm running for deals with both those types of cases. I have been both a prosecutor for the county and a public defender for the county, so I've worked on both sides of criminal cases. I know what it's like to work and to be, which would help me be more fair when I would sit and judge criminal cases, because I've been on both sides. I also, right now, I am a civil judicial staff attorney. I've been working at the court for over 13 years. I have a lot of experience working at the court for which I'm running. My opponent does not have that experience. I served as a magistrate with the juvenile diversion program for over 15 years, so I have some judicial experience. It's a program to help youth, to help children who commit crimes to come before the community, to have a hearing, and to make reparation to society, and to hopefully help them to stay out of the criminal law system. I also have many endorsements. I have police endorsement, I have fire endorsement, I have some labor endorsements. I have Cameo, I have the Justinian Forum. And I would like to explain one thing about Judge for Yourself. Judge for Yourself is an excellent organization. I did not participate in Judge for Yourself because back in April there was controversy. Some African American pastors who are well respected in the community felt that the Judge for Yourself was not a fair process. I decided not to participate due to that fact. So that is the reason why if you look at the Judge for Yourself sheet, it says refuse to participate. There's many candidates that chose to not participate. But, my opponent actually, she did not participate either. They gave her a full score. So, just so that I can clear that up. And also, if you have any questions, I guess we're all going to get 4 questions, but I just want to reiterate, I'm Lori Ann Dyke, and I have the experience for this job. I've been working at the court for a long time, and I would humbly ask for your vote. Thank you.
Good morning. I am Judge Kathleen Ansatul, and thank you for the invitation to come here today. One of the big differences between the top of your ballot and the bottom of your ballot is that people ignore the judges, okay? Both in voting and in listening to us. When they invite us to their forums, today we have all judicial candidates. Usually we have the whole slate and we get 1 minute. And it's pretty hard to judge a person in 1 minute. When I've been a judge, your judge, for 27 years. My life was really planned by complete luck. Everything I've done in my life has been luck, except for my commitment to helping others, which began when I was 7 years old. And my commitment to helping others has spanned all different types of commitments, both to the local hospital, the local churches. I'm a Sunday preschool teacher. I worked with the Cleveland National Air Show for 30 years, promoting Cleveland. I am presently volunteering at the Cuyahoga Valley National Park Service, which I helped to buy the land for when I was with the Department of Justice 30 years ago. So that's full circle for me. I'm also with the Brooklyn Business Exchange, which raises money for abused children and wounded warriors. Last year I participated with the Child Rescue Network, going to 9 cities throughout our country to teach people about human trafficking and how to help us find the children that are abducted and missing. It was a 2-week fabulous experience. You might notice my car with the decals on it. I'm still advertising the missing children wherever I go. This will be my last election because I will be aged out by law. And I want to finish my career as your judge because I see a lot of changes coming, okay? And the changes that are coming, some may be very good, some may be not so good. The opioid epidemic has been, of course, on our minds for the last 4 years, center of our minds. I am happy that I have not had anyone die on my docket yet, thank God. I pray every day that they won't die on my docket. And I look forward to continuing to help people overcome their addictions. And in my courtroom, there's a big difference between a drug dealer and a drug addict, okay? And the dealers I have sent to prison each and every time I had the opportunity. The addicts, I'm a big believer in the 12-step program, which I learned because of the people that come in front of me. When I began my role as a judge, I was not an AA supporter. I had bad experience with some of their people, and I really was not their supporter. But as people change their lives, and I asked them, what was it that helped you change your life? Because I know it's not easy to overcome an addiction. I had to overcome smoking, and that wasn't easy for me. And without question, every single man or woman told me AA. Well, now I require AA. I don't send people to the recovery services where people get paid for filling a bed. I don't believe that they really are into a forever cure. I think they're into a monthly cure. My clients, I put them on probation for 5 years. I get laughed at for that by my colleagues and other people. I get ridiculed for that. But I believe that, first of all, you can't ever increase the sentence after you've done it. So I can shorten it, and I do shorten a lot of them once they have proved that they have overcome their addiction, and usually about 3 years. But I believe in working with them through their relapses until they have overcome their addiction. I know there's a lot of talk about rehabilitation, folks. AA is it. Everyone there works for free. They've all had problems bigger than some of them than the people I sent to them. You know, and I tell my people, they're working for free. You better have more respect for them than you show me, because they want to help you. They don't get paid for it. They're there wanting to help you. And I would urge any of you who have family or friends who have been touched by the addiction problem, that you, if you have to, go to AA with them. You know, take them every day to AA until they can overcome their addiction. It does work. I think I've used up more than my time, sorry.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Jeff Siglar, and like everyone here, except for Judge Rini, I'm running for the Common Pleas General Division Court. And I want to tell you a little bit about myself, why I decided that I wanted to run for judge. I thought maybe you couldn't hear me, which is very rare because I have a very loud voice, I'm told. My name is Jeff Siglar. I grew up in Northeast Ohio. I graduated first in my class in high school, graduated first in my class in college at Ohio Wesleyan University. Then I went to Harvard Law School, graduated from there with honors. And a lot of people in my class are going to New York or DC where they can make a ton of money on Wall Street. I came back here to Northeast Ohio, a place I grew up, a place that I love. I clerked for a judge on the U.S. Court of Appeals for a Sixth Circuit. That's a very, very competitive job you fight for to get out of law school, because you're one step below the U.S. Supreme Court. And cases from all the district courts in the country go there, and that's where a lot of cases, the final decision is made. When I was there, I handled everything from civil cases, employment discrimination, civil rights cases, complex commercial litigation, also criminal cases, death penalty cases, immigration cases. I got to see the full range of cases you see in our court system. During that year, I was working for a judge, researching the issues, making recommendations, and writing the first drafts of the opinions. After that, I went to private practice. I started on Jones Day, a large international law firm based right here in Cleveland. I was there for 4 years, then I came over to Tucker Ellis, which is another large firm, nationwide practice based out of Cleveland, where I've been since 2012. My practice has brought me all around the country. I've traveled to 38 states, taking depositions, defending medical device manufacturers, other corporations that have business disputes with each other. And because of that, I've seen how the law is practiced throughout the country in federal and state court. And a number of years ago, I started realizing in certain state courts throughout this country, you'll file a motion on some complex issue of law, and you have a judge who either doesn't understand the issues or doesn't want to do the work to actually rule on those motions. And what happens then is that case will languish, and it'll take 2 or 3 years while parties have a dispute and they can't get an answer to the case. It doesn't get moved forward because the judge doesn't want to be actively involved in that case. So I've been called on to run for office a few times. I didn't feel like I was ready. I'm still, paying off student loan debt. But reached a point this year with the ugly tone our political discourse is taking, seeing some of those same problems I've seen throughout the country in our own Cuyahoga County courts. And I thought, we live in a democracy. We get the government that we make for ourselves. And if people aren't willing to step up and run for office, even if it means they're making some sacrifices, we're not going to have a good government. So I thought it was incumbent upon me to, as someone who believes in having high-quality representatives, high-quality judges, to step up and run for office. I have unique experience that I don't think too many people who run for this type of judicial office have, in that I have a nationwide practice with very complex civil litigation. A lot of people will tell you about experience with criminal law, and that's important. That's less than half of the cases that come through the Common Pleas Court. Most of the cases are civil cases, and I'll tell you, it hurts the economy of Ohio. It hurts the economy of Cuyahoga County. You look at how we're languishing compared to the rest of the state and some other places in the country. One of the reasons is that as businesses don't want to operate if they're not going to get a fair shake. That doesn't mean they want judges who are only going to side for business. They just want to know if there's a case, the judge is going to get involved early, help the case get worked through. If people need to be paid money, they're going to get paid money quickly. If nothing wrong happened, that needs to be ruled on quickly and efficient. I also have experience in criminal. As I said, I work on death penalty cases. I've also volunteered as a pro bono lawyer working for people who were wrongly accused or maybe wrongly convicted, filing briefs on their behalf. So I do have experience on both sides of the common pleas docket, as it were. In addition, I just want to say a little bit about me personally. I'm married to my wife Amanda. We just had our first child 6 weeks and 3 days ago now. Her name is Reagan Elizabeth, and I'll be going home and kissing her when I get home after this event tonight. I've been a lifelong community member in Cuyahoga County, and I'd be honored for your vote either on November 6th or at any time between now and then. Early voting has started. Jeff Sindelar, thank you very much.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Judge Denise Rini. I'm part of the juvenile division, so we're all Court of Common Pleas. I'll tell you that there's a lot of young people in here. I went to law school when I was 40, so you have time to make up your mind what you want to do when you grow up. And I went specifically to do juvenile law. But juvenile court isn't only about delinquencies. We also do the abuse, neglect, dependency, and we've had a lot of the issues with the opioid crisis because we've had a lot of foster homes. We had 3 years ago around 2,000 kids in foster homes, and now we have approximately 2,500. So that's really affected our economy because we don't have enough good foster homes. And when we remove a child from a home, we create trauma. When we keep the child in the home that's dysfunctional or doing drugs or domestic violence, we create trauma. So we really have to, as a community, wrap up the children so that they can actually have a chance at life. Everyone is welcome to come into any of the courtrooms, come and sit and help, because it's going to take each and every one of us to solve this problem. We also do the traffic. We also do private custody. So if you have a child that's out of wedlock, the mother is the sole legal custodian, and you have to come to juvenile court to establish paternity and child support. But that's all the things that juvenile court does. I'm one of 6 judges, and what I have to tell you, my week last week was really difficult because I did a murder case with a 17-year-old kid, and they put on photos of an autopsy, and the youth that was killed was 16. So when you have to look at these kind of images, it has an effect on you. It has an effect on our community because there's so many guns out there. There's so many, the delinquencies are down, so crime is down, but the violence is up because they're getting a hold of guns. So when you go to vote for judges, I was the only one that scored excellent all the way across the board on Judge for Yourself. The judges are going to affect your life, so the people at the bottom of the ballot are going to affect your life more than the candidates at the top. So use the instruments, research us, make sure that we're doing our jobs because it is hard work. I practiced in juvenile court for 10 years before I took the bench, and this is the hardest thing I've ever done. When I have to terminate parental rights, when I have to tell a mom and a dad that they no longer can be the mother and the father because they have mental illness, it's usually not drugs, it usually is mental illness. They just aren't capable of caring for the child. It's heartbreaking because all they do is want to care for that child. But when they have an IQ of 60 or 70 or 80, they struggle financially, they struggle with education, they struggle just to even get their own children to school. And those are the things that bring families into court. So please, please vote for the judges. Take a look at all of us and make the best decision you can. I'm kind of thinking that you might want to vote for me. So everyone in the room, grab a judge for yourself, and thank you for having us.
Okay, now we're going to go on. We have a few questions, and we're going to start with Sam, and she's going to ask the first question.
Small businesses are important for Ohio, and many immigrants are small business owners. It costs both time and money to come into court or have employees miss work for court. How will you respond to these concerns of small business owners? Each candidate has 2 minutes to respond, and we'll start with Mrs. Dyke.
really good question. Basically, the job that I do now, that I've been doing for over 13 years, is that I work on civil cases at a common police court for the county. And we have, part of the civil cases are involve small businesses. And so I've been working on these types of cases for a long time. Basically, what you want to do is when a case comes before the court, for the docket that I work on, any case that comes before the court, it comes to me first, and I set up a schedule for that case. And I work on issues on those cases too. I do research and writing, and I give recommendations on how to rule on cases, on hearings, on motions. I think the most effective way in order to make sure that these cases are heard properly before the court is to make sure that there's efficiency, that the cases do not languish, that if there's a motion pending, that it be ruled on in the proper amount of time, another thing that's very important is there's a lot of people who are pro se, who represent themselves, that come before the court. It is important that they have a voice before the court. It's important to have interpreters available so that everyone's voice is heard at the courts. And I've worked with a lot of pro ses over the years because as the judicial staff attorney, that's part of my job. So I think basically it's just to make sure that people's voices are heard at the courts, that their cases do not languish, and that they get a fair chance in the court system.
Okay, I was endorsed by the Cleveland Plain Dealer this year again, and they said I run one of the Justice Center's most efficient courtrooms. I was with the Department of Justice for 13 years before I became a judge, and I handled lots and lots of cases involving small businesses, whether it was being sued by one of the federal agencies or they were suing us. Okay, I am at the courthouse every morning at 7 a.m., sometimes earlier, usually never later unless I'm sick. I am there for every one of the court pretrials that is handled in my courtroom. This year my staff attorney's on his final year, so I'm giving him a little bit more independence, but any case that wants the judge's presence, all they have to do is ask and I'm out in less than a minute. My family is small business oriented. That's how I grew up. That's what paid for our college tuitions, etc. So I am very aware of what small business issues are. I do believe litigation is very expensive. We have a commercial docket. I'm not on the commercial docket, but I've never had lawyers asked to come off my docket to go to the commercial docket. They have chosen to stay on my docket because I do rule on their motions for summary judgment, motions to dismiss, preliminary injunction, etc. And I rule on them within the time frames allowed by law, which sometimes I'd like to rule a little faster, but I have to give the other side their 10 days to respond, or 28, depending on what the issue is. But I don't think you will ever hear any complaint that my docket is not efficient and that I don't pay attention to my cases. I think more often you hear the lawyers who wish I would grant their continuances ad nauseum, meaning forever. You know, most of the cases that are delayed on my docket are because of the attorneys asking for them, and sometimes they have reasonable requests, I have to grant them, other times they don't, and I do not grant them. Makes me not the most popular person, but judge for yourself, but I did receive a good rating. This time, last time I received excellent, this time good, who knows. Thank you.
So I agree with everything Judge Sakula said about having an efficient docket. Another thing that I think is very important in these cases is that you right-size your discovery and your case management plan. Big thing in litigation is the discovery process, and that's where you get a lot of your expenses. Give you an example. I had a case with a credit reporting agency, and there was a state judge in Nebraska who ordered them to turn over every document related to credit reporting that they had, period. So the trillions of documents. The judge couldn't possibly have meant that, but he didn't actually know what the case was about. He didn't understand the volume of electronic information that companies have nowadays. And we had to file a motion and say, Your Honor, one, that's physically impossible. Two, that would cost millions of dollars over a case that's over $1,000. You can't possibly really want that. So what's important is you have to have a judge who understands how discovery works in the electronic age. You have to get involved early and say, if this is a small dispute, we need to fit the case plan, bearing in mind that either party wants to spend $10,000 over a $5,000 dispute. So you need to set up the parameters of the case, get the parties in, and say, what's this dispute about? All of us have big and small disputes every day of our life. Most of them don't end up in a courtroom. And we have to remember when people come to court, that process has failed. And in over 99% of civil disputes, the case ends because the parties at some point agree to resolve it themselves before you have a trial. And if a judge is doing his or her job, you need to get involved early, get the parties to remember that, and then design a plan that will get them either to a trial as quickly and cheaply as possible, or hopefully help them resolve the case on their own. That's the only way parties to litigation walk away both somewhat happy when they get to make the decision. It should be the last resort when you have to have the jury tell them you win and you lose, so that the parties can really feel like they both got something good out of that litigation.
Well, the interesting part about juvenile court is we don't handle small businesses, but here's how it does affect it. Because when youth may commit crimes in your neighborhoods, it's usually about, again, small businesses. So I'm really aware of when I have to have a business owner in, or even the police in to testify. I never have the youth or the child come into court unless he's going to plead or unless there's a trial. And I do the same thing for the small business owner and the police, because for sitting around the courthouse, there's nothing more boring. So what I want you to understand is an efficient docket is really the key. You bring them in when you know something's actually going to get done. And if it doesn't get done for whatever reason, I bring everyone into the courtroom and I explain what the holdup is. It might be a discovery issue, it might be one of the officers isn't available. But regardless of whether it's an officer or whether it's a small business owner, all the courts need to be aware of the time, because they can't come down and sit at court for hours without getting anything productive done. Thank you.
Thank you for the question, Sam. So to address your immediate question about what we would do, I definitely concur, and I'm glad I'm not running against any of the judges and judicial candidates up here, but I believe that you have a great outline of what should be done. In addition to what was stated, something that my campaign plans on focusing on are educational forums, right? So frequently when you have an issue, if you have a small business issue, it may not come before a Cuyahoga County Court of Common Pleas official because our balances are $15,000 and over. If it's under $15,000, it may go to the Cleveland Municipal Court. If it's a small claims issue between individuals, it may go to small claims court. If it's an employment issue, it may go to the federal district court. So there are many different places where an issue between a small business owner and someone else might end up. And so an educational forum would make it so that you as a business owner are empowered and you have the tools necessary to hopefully not make the mistakes or not make the issues that brought forth the issue, right? So if you're informed about the fact that, hey, when you are a small business, you need to make sure that you have these protections in place for your employees. You need to make sure that if you're advertising from your business that you put this disclaimer on your business. If you know those small tips and tools of the trade, you can enact those tips so that way you don't have to worry about coming into court and going into litigation. Additionally, I think mediation is very important. We need more trust in our community. We need to trust each other more. We need to speak with each other more. We need to do more with each other so that way we don't have to go to the court. We don't have to go to a stranger to resolve our disputes. Let's do it internally. Let's talk to one another and find a way between us to work out the issue. Thank you.
The only dispute I have is that Jeff stole all my lines. So I wanted one for judge to have his hands-on service. And this is exactly goes to this point. So a small business gets in there, they may have 2 or 3 issues that are really the primary driving issues in the case. And if the judge is involved early, the judge can say, hey, we can limit discovery here. We don't have to have an all-out war for 6 months. How about we have a small discovery window of, 60 days. And the small business is not paying out thousands upon thousands of dollars to people like myself who are trial attorneys, because we're expensive. So the small business, if the judge is involved early, you can manage discovery properly and then determine quickly if the case can be suitable for what's called ADR, alternative dispute resolution, which is two forms that the court offers of mediation and arbitration, or the parties can agree to mediate the case privately. It's a little bit more expensive. So reducing the cost of discovery, reducing the cost of litigation, and the money that's paid to trial attorneys would be the way to help the small businesses out. And you do that by having the judge involved early and having their head in the case, not until the last minute.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to go to the next question. We're going to go to Catherine.
Asian Americans have been subject to increasing racial bias and targeting in the past few years. How will you ensure that your courtroom operates without racial bias? Each candidate has 2 minutes to respond, and we'll start with Judge Satola.
Well, that's a good question, Catherine. I was telling somebody here this morning, I've been on the bench 27 years, okay? I have not had any cases involving the Asian community on my criminal docket in 27 years. There were many other people in that category as well. And I think I brought up to some of my friends are elitists and racist in their thinking, and I try to dispel that, and I tell them, where does this come from? Where does this come from? Because 27 years, I'm seeing the worst of our community, and none of these people are there that you are profiling them against. So I don't know where it's coming from, because I am not racist, I'm not an elitist. When I sit on my docket, I don't know the color of the people in front of me. If you ask me the next day what color was John Doe that I sentenced to prison for 27 years, I'd have to go ask a deputy or a bailiff, because I honestly would not remember that, because it's not a factor I use in making judgments. Okay? I look at the facts, I look at the law, I look at the danger to society, the harm that the victim suffered, and those kind of factors. And I have never sentenced anyone to prison without having a pre-sentence report first. And that's including cases where I have no discretion at all. Okay, there are cases where it is a life in prison sentence and the judge can't do anything about it. I still get a report. And people say, why do you get a report, Judge? You know what you have to do. I said, yeah, but the people in prison are going to, the guards and the COs in the prisons along the way are going to have that report if I order it. And they're going to know about that person. And I have seen in 27 years, I have seen good people do bad things, and I have seen bad people do good things. And I don't believe that any person is all one way or the other. Very few are like that. And so even when I have no discretion, I make sure that that report that talks about that man or woman, about their family, about their background, goes up so that everyone in the prison system will know about them. Because I have found good things in those reports and things that we should all be worried about in those reports. And I believe that's important. I don't believe there's any room in the justice system, civil or criminal, for bias or prejudice against anyone or really anything. You know, I'm not biased against small business nor big business. I have a friend that hates the corporate world. Really? Really? What do you have to do with them? She has no line with them at all, but yet, you know, she hates them. We see that a lot today in the politics. People hate things that they don't even know about. I am definitely not like that. It doesn't happen in my career. And I don't think you'll find anyone that says it does. I'm a Republican in a Democratic county. I've been elected 5 times. This is my 6th time. I've been endorsed by everyone. And I'm very happy to announce that even the Parma Democrats this year did put my opponent on their slate card. I find that to be very indicative of the fair and impartial program I run. That I am endorsed by all these different people who normally would not endorse a Republican, and they have endorsed me from 1992 forward. And I hope that I get, the most important endorsement, however, is your vote. I hope I get that. Thank you. happy to answer when they let me.
The only question I had was, how does a person know about judges, really?
Well,
The average person doesn't know. You know, friends of mine are prosecutors and judges and lawyers, but to really know what a judge does, I don't think the average person does that. Isn't that true?
I think that's why we have Judge for Yourself, and we have all these organizations. What I tell people is, whatever organization you think best suits you, if they endorse, go with their endorsement. If it's police, if it's fire, if it's organized labor, if you're, I believe you're used to endorse, because on some of my old literature, I have agent endorsements. So I know there was, and you go with the group that most suits you, because you can't know everything about all of us. We don't have the money to go on TV and radio like everyone, like the upper ballot. So you have to go with these groups. When you see a candidate with a long list of endorsements by various groups, I think that should let you know they're fair and impartial. If you see a candidate with only endorsements from one type of group, maybe they're not so fair and impartial.
Let's take the R and the D off names.
Right, it is off.
You know, no, seriously, we mentioned, just say I'm running as a judge, not as a Democrat or as a Republican. You should lose that and be objective.
You know, it used to be that way, sir, but the Supreme Court allowed candidates to be endorsed after the primary by the political party. That wasn't always that way. When I started, it wasn't that way.
But technically,
but now it's that way.
You should lose the party affiliation as a judge.
Totally agree with you.
And as a judge, that's not your job is to rule as an R or a D. It's to be fair and follow what the law is. And to follow, I think an important thing, coming out to an event like this, you can hear about us. Do I sound like a smart guy or someone you don't want on the bench? Do these other candidates sound like people who are going to be honest and fair? And then the important thing is, you all are here listening to us. Go and talk to your friends and your neighbors. And if you like what I have to say hey, I heard Jeff speak. You should vote for him. These races are important because it's really hard for us to raise money and get our message out. So these events are really amazing for us. And it's important that all of you also then speak to other people, because that's the only way that the voters can learn about their judicial candidates. In regard to the question, I think this is really one of the bedrock principles of America. We are the only large, multiracial, successful society in the history of human existence. Our history as human beings is being in tribes where you fight against people based on what you look like, what race you are, what language you speak. The reason we've been such a successful country, and I might get choked up talking about this because this is something I believe my whole life, is because we are the only country where you are an American because of the ideas of liberty and equality. Not because of your bloodline, not because of who your mom and dad were, your race, your religion. The reason we are so successful is we put tribalism behind us, and we are a country where we strive for equality under the law. If you go to the courthouse, the Supreme Court, there's the justice statue. What's on her face? A blindfold. When you're in a courtroom, and to me, whenever you're in America, you should not care the race of the person you're talking to. We are all Americans first, and that is all that counts. If you come in front of my courtroom, I do not care what your racial background is, your religion, whether you're a native English speaker. That's not what makes you an American. It is taking the oath that you are an American and that you believe in our Constitution, freedom, and equality above all else. One of the reasons I'm running for office is over the past 20 years, I think we've seen a backslide. People are wanting to go back into siding with people just based on if they're the same colors. That is a path to ruin for our country. We need to put that behind us and go back to the credo that we are all one people, united by our common American values. We all have our own cultures and backgrounds that our ancestors came from, and we can all enjoy all of that too. My grandparents were Irish and Italian, and they would joke about, oh, this family makes better food than this one, and joke about it. And they would tell me how when they came over, they were discriminated against as Irish and Italians, but they all strived to become Americans who still had their culture. But they also remembered that they were now a new citizen of a new country, and that is fundamental to our future success, all of us as Americans.
I guess I can sum all of this up in one word, and that is civility. When I have a youth in front of me or a family in front of me, the one thing I do is treat them with respect, because we have success stories in juvenile court. I do the safe harbor docket, which are youth that have been sex trafficked. And in order for us to break the cycle, they have to not only respect themselves, they have to respect me and I have to respect them. So we get them services. It's the same with someone that I've sent to ODYS, which is our prison system. I find that when you show that person, that young person, that one, they're not going to plead to anything unless they actually can allocute and tell me what they did, so that they can trust us and trust the system. So I would like everyone to treat each other with respect and civility, because somewhere along the line, I think our upper government has kind of lost a little bit of that, but it's going to be the young people that bring it back. Because I'm a product of the 60s. We were going to change the world. I don't know what happened, but I'm hopeful. I am really hopeful, and that's the best thing I can instill in the young people's lives is hope. Because I have a girl graduating on Monday from the Safe Harbor docket. She's asked for a caramel cheesecake, she gets a flower, she gets a certificate, she's gone to the Rape Crisis Center, she has gone to the Renee Jones Empowerment Center, and she does it because everyone in the courthouse, and all the service providers, all the way up to me, treat her with the utmost respect and empower her to be able to change her life. So thank you.
Speaking about bias at the court, there is a lot of bias out in our society. I know this, my grandparents actually came from other countries. My grandmother, she came from a country that did not use the English alphabet, that used a different alphabet. She never learned to read and write English. My grandfather struggled to learn to read and write English because he also was educated in a different alphabet. I know what it's like to face bias myself. My last name's Dyke. My name's Lori Ann Dyke. If you know my literature, you see my signs, it's the orange and black signs. I've had people make fun of my name while I was growing up, and I can say this: my name is pronounced differently in another language, and it means it means something in another language. It means wild in a different language. That is what my family inherited from the past. I come to America. I know there's people in this room that have come to America, and people make fun of you, so I know what that's like. Speaking about bias, I'm not a biased person, probably from my own experiences of bias against me. I will say this too, that I was not taught to be biased. My father was a law professor. He educated a lot of students who were from outside of this country, who were different races, black, white, Asian, all sorts of races. One of the United States congressmen who serve right now in the United States Congress is named after my father because of the help that my father gave him in trying to make a success in this country. His name is Ted Lieu. My father's name is Ted Dyke. He was named after my father. My family has been very respectful, I believe, over the years. I was not taught to be biased. It's important in the courts for a judge not to be biased, and that's one of the most important things for a judge. We're also talking about what party that you're running from, Republican or Democrat. That doesn't matter either. It's nonpartisan, it's upholding the law, it's being fair and unbiased, looking at the person before you for being a person, and deciding what they need to help them become a better person. The other thing that I want to say is that one thing that I don't think people understand, or really they understand it, but I don't think they really let it sink in. When somebody commits a crime, it's not just a crime against the person that they have picked as a victim. That is why when you have a criminal case, it's called the state of Ohio versus the defendant. Any crime committed in the state of Ohio is a crime committed to against every single person in this state. And that is what brings us all together. We as a society, we are saying that this is our community, we are standing together. No matter what our race or gender or age, or ethnic background or religion is. And the other thing that I'd just like to say really quickly, when people go to vote for judges, the most important thing is to look at the literature that the judicial candidates put out. That is how you get to know a judicial candidate. It gives our education, it gives our work experience, it gives endorsements. And people see these, what we hand out, and I don't think people really take time to look. It's a lot of time and energy for us to put those together, and to send those out to people and try and get our information out to people. So I just wanted to talk about that too. And I also want to reiterate that one of the reasons I did not participate in Judge for Yourself is because a group of people said they felt that it was biased, racially biased. And I chose not to participate based on that issue. I'll hand this over now. Thank you.